I'm on my way to a site known as North Ings Stone Row because, well, it's just good to show you things, really. Oh my god, I have to cross this. You know, I'm screwing this. I'm going to jump over here, or at least try to. Oh! This is known as North Ings Stone Row, the largest stone row north of the River Thames. Located in the North Yorkshire moors of northeastern England. It is a prominent line of 83 standing stones of varying size, stretching over 490 metres, or a third of a mile to my older viewers. Shout out to WC21 Productions. Given the number of gaps in it, it is likely that it was once longer. However, it is not alone, and it is instead part of a larger collection of prehistoric remains on Skeldaskew and Commondale moors, including burial mounds, the remains of a prehistoric village, and a big stone circle, which maybe one day I'll make a video on. Archaeologists, such as myself, believe that the stone row likely dates to the Bronze Age, sometime between 2500 and 1500 BC. However, no one has been able to confirm this concretely. According to the Stone Rows of Great Britain website, it is a type S12 row, meaning that it has unevenly spaced stones, some almost touching, others widely spaced, and a noticeable curve. The stones are each between 3 and 5 feet tall, standing on a low, wide bank with a ditch on one side. The stone row continues beyond this earthwork, ending at North Ings Slack, the gully of a dry stream. The row is closely linked to this linear, or straight to you and me, earthwork, possibly built during the Bronze Age, Iron Age, or even the early medieval period. This earthwork, stretching 770 metres between the two stream gullies, includes its own set of smaller standing stones. It is barely visible because the ditch has been filled in. An excavation in 1991 showed that the stone row is older than this earthwork, predating it. And while the earthwork was possibly built for defence or farming, a common practice in the North Yorkshire moors, the stone row may have been more spiritual or ritual. Indeed, just across from the stone row there are two very large burial mounds surviving, probably from the early Bronze Age, as well as many more barrows only surviving as faint stains in the earth. They run parallel to the stone row, marking the same alignment. The largest of these is known as Hob on the Hill, or, in modern English, Goblin on the Hill. Which is just a fantastic name. As for that ditch, numerous similar unfinished defensive ditches are found dotted around the moors, like these mysterious sites here. Such earthworks are also found alongside earlier alignments of monuments, either burial mounds or standing stones. At North Ings, we appear to have both, with the stone row and the burial mounds. It may be argued that the Bronze Age monuments were used for decades as impromptu boundaries or borders between tribes or kingdoms once their ritual function had ceded. Recent studies across the valley at Ayton Moor found that the ditches there were, drumroll please, Viking. What? So it's obvious that these borders were kept well into the medieval period, from the early Bronze Age right on through. Interestingly, one of the stones at North Ings has a small carved cross on it, suggesting an attempt to give the ancient site a Christian meaning. Of course, not every line through the landscape is a border or a boundary. Not every YouTube channel on YouTube is worth watching. However, this one is. So if you like the video so far and you think you're going to enjoy the rest, please do like this video and make sure to subscribe to the channel. It helps me keep doing what I'm doing in my spare time and makes it all worth it. And I love bringing this stuff to you guys. So yeah, go ahead and subscribe, please. Another comparable site sits a few miles to the south, or a kilometre to my younger viewers. This is known as Crown End Stone Row. It is much smaller than North Ings, but also runs parallel to a later defensive ditch over a moorland spur. More interestingly than this, at this site, is the fact that there is a massive Bronze Age settlement just past it to the north, meaning that this stone row may have served as a boundary to this settlement. The same is true of the so-called Old Wife's Neck, a site with a stone row running parallel to a huge complex of ditches, which features this stone, which looks creepily human. Archaeologist Stanhope White wrote in the 1980s that North Ing Stone Row may have once held a large wall, with the stones of the row acting as supports, making it, again, a large Bronze Age boundary or border. Conversely, devilishly handsome and intelligent archaeologist Ayton Moor Ibbotson suggests that the row might have guided people to the sea, much like the nearby burial mounds. Hello, and welcome to the greatest place on God's green earth. This is Great Ayton Moor, here in the North York Moors. I'm up here because I'm taking drone photos, which you'll probably be seeing in this video, of a chambered tomb/bank cairn over there. I'm heading off now to an Iron Age enclosure. How exciting! On moorlands like this, you can expect to find little, what are called cairns, and this one appears to be a clearance cairn that has been modified by later people to... Oh, it's been modified by some doing stone stacking. Hippies of the world, that is a scheduled monument. We do not stone stack cairns. You stupid idiots. In case you're unaware, stone stacking is a sort of hippy-dippy thing that silly tourists do in the most beautiful locations here in England. In fact, all over the world they do it. And they just sort of ruin the landscape by stacking stones that are natural into just these silly sort of namaste stacks. And it's... they do it to cairns, prehistoric cairns, which that's illegal. You could be fined thousands of pounds for doing that. These become more numerous the further west you head, especially towards the tree line at the brow of the moor. Among these clearances are several earlier burial cairns dating to the early Bronze Age to around 2500 BC. Within this dense, multi-period cairn field, you can find the most fascinating landmarks on the moor, if not the North York Moors in general. On a south-facing slope overlooking Hunter's Scar, two exceptionally rare Neolithic monuments, a passage tomb and a bank cairn. These features are part of a single spoon-shaped megastructure aligned southwest to northeast. There is nothing remarkable to see at ground level. No lumps, bumps, or stones. The only shadows cast are by the few scattered pine trees to the west. Although the bracken may grow thick on the monument, the level ground that stretches along the length of the structure remains unobstructed and visible to the naked eye. Bank cairns like this are among Britain's rarest monuments, dating to the early Neolithic period, from around 3500 BC. So 1,000 years older than the burial cairns that I mentioned earlier. They are most often found in southern England, especially to the west, in places like Devon and Cornwall. Researchers have measured examples in Cornwall, for instance, that are around 400 metres, or a quarter of a mile in length. It remains a mystery why early Neolithic people built such a monument, characteristic of southwest England, on Great Ayton Moor, up in the northwest. Its isolated position may be an example of cultural diversity during the early Neolithic, as groups met, traded, and influenced each other over considerable distances. The same can be said, for instance, of Shap Avenue being very similar to Avebury. The bank cairn on Great Ayton Moor is 120 metres. Its northern end terminates in a bizarre oval enclosure. Whether the two constitute a single structure is not known, as the passage tomb sits between them, covering the point where they would have met. Two pitted mounds sit within this oval enclosure, which may have been graves. If so, it seems someone robbed them a long time ago. The passage tomb at the centre of the monument is often described as a chambered cairn. Any tomb containing chambers may be called chambered, yet only those with a long passage leading into said chamber may be called passage tombs. Such monuments are actually very rare in Britain, tending to hold the grandest of mid to late Neolithic burials from around 3200 BC to 2500 BC. However, most large cairns in England remain unexcavated, and it is not clear how many might contain inner passages or chambers. As such, most chambered tombs and passage tombs in England may remain unidentified. The builders constructed this chamber using megalithic stones, capping it off with a 2-metre tall end slab. They then built a 2-metre long passage to reach this chamber. Typically, archaeologists find jumbled bones within Neolithic burial chambers, known as disarticulated skeletons, but here, no bones were ever found. Nevertheless, evidence of bone removal shortly after burial has been found in comparable Neolithic chambered tombs. In rare instances, people even fashioned these bones into jewellery. Often, after some time spent removing and reinterring these bones of the dead in and out of the chamber itself was filled in, and the site decommissioned. This practice seems to have occurred here, as the passage and empty chamber were filled with rubble, and later covered with a cairn. The final addition to the site were several round cairns or burial mounds made of stone, off alignment with the bank cairn, and 2 ring cairns, which, if you've seen my video here, you'll know that they connect to a mass death event during the end of the Neolithic period.